as a country. We have close to 50 million people in Kenya. So how does that affect me at the end of the day when my salary has not increased? My bus fare is going up because fuel has gone up. Like Paul Awafula mentions, the price of unga now is above 120. So when this budget is read tomorrow by CS Rotich, we have a tendency, and in the last few years, there has been no positive that comes out of it. All I'm hearing is that maybe unga will go up again. Fuel prices may go up again. Is that the reality?
The business editor is actually very right. One, lack of understanding, as he put it, lack of understanding in terms of what the budget process is actually a key impediment to Kenyans being able to understand. And then two, lack of accountability of how the money is actually being spent. KRA collects a lot of money, we borrow a lot of money, but that money seems to disappear. If I'm able to put it's actually 3.08 trillion that this year's budget is going to be, of which almost 400 billion is going to go to devolution, then 600 billion is going to actually pay our foreign debts, then 1.6 trillion is actually going to be used on recurrent expenditure, transport, logistics, hospitality by the national government. So when you put it like that, then the rest of the money is actually going to spend on education, the police force, the military, pensions, and a few millions put into agriculture and a few millions put into manufacturing. So we look at actually more than 3/4 of this money is actually going to be spent on three things: recurrent expenditure, payment of debts, and pension. So we were left with a quarter or a third of the budget to be able to do a lot of things, to do development, be able to improve our security, cyber security, to be able to look at improving our export-import account ratio. So for me, this year's budget is actually going to be one of the most painful in Kenya's history, because KRA has had a problem in terms of actually enforcing better collection.
Correct.
You see, with the 2018-2019 budget, it actually made it very difficult for KRA to collect. 2 years down the road, KRA has been able to clean up its system in terms of 5 million Kenyans who have a KRA PIN, but are unable to pay taxes. And then two, if you increase taxes, you create an aspect whereby many Kenyans we look for genius ways to actually avoid paying taxes, because at the end of the day, there is no transparency in how the money is being spent. Now we're actually going on the 4th Eurobond. If you ask me how was the first Eurobond spent, the second one and the third one, I will not be able to account it for you.
Able to account for
and
that.
then one of the biggest problems that we've seen, and why many Kenyans have lost interest, is blaming devolution as a key impediment to how the national government is spending money. 380 billion that goes to devolution is actually peanuts compared to what State House and the Office of Deputy President and the National Police Service spend in a budget year on hospitality and logistics alone.
All right, Bernard, and maybe we should make it a little bit more simple in terms of, if you do your house budget, it's very simple. This is the amount of money that I earn, and therefore this goes towards school fees, this goes towards rent, electricity, water, utilities, call them utilities. Then this is what, if there's savings and all that. But now when it comes to the national government and the budget, are we able in the newsroom to give it that simplicity such that it's very easy to tell that this amount of money is going towards, for instance, recurrent expenditure, this another amount, or what we would call now in the house utilities, if it is payment of loans, for example, is it possible for us to break it down to that simple format?
Yeah, it's very important that media actually tries to secure the raw data of what this budget, because what the minister or the cabinet secretary is going to do in parliament tomorrow is just to give a summary of the contents of the budget, but the intricacies of it remains with the government, and it's upon the media to actually dig in and break these figures into palatable pieces that common mwananchi can understand, that this is the money that is going for agriculture and how is it going to improve agriculture. Because it is sad, Mike, that At this moment, we talk of Kenya being, agricultural country. But look at the budget that is being put into agriculture development. It's peanuts, as in, I was reading some statistics, they are talking about 72 billion, the whole agriculture. Then when farmers fail to produce enough, we rush to import things that are more even expensive than buying and supporting here locally. Now, in Kenya, we have a situation where we like spending so much than what we can actually make. And there was a commission, a task force by Abdikadir, which talked about a number of moribund, parastatals and, commissions, which still exist. They are employees, they are, who earn salary. But these commissions and parastatals just duplicate roles. Look at the gender, is called GEC, Gender Commission. Then you look at the Kenya Human Rights and Equality Commission.
More or less.
Then there is another one called Ombudsman. Then, all these things serve almost the same purpose. But they are staff, they are facilitated, they get allocation, budgetary allocation. What are they doing if we can match these things together? Then they are parastatal like ICDI, I don't know, those that were previously, being funded a lot of money, which still exist. But the task force actually recommended for those moribund parastatals to be merged to be done away with. Okay. It will save a lot of money from the taxpayers. What we are seeing from this budget, and we expect that the VAT might increase from the current 16% to 18%. And if the VAT increases, it means the common things that are accessible to common mwananchi, cost of living is going actually to go high. Go up, yeah. Because the cost of basic items is going to go high.
All right.
And it now bites into our pockets.
Okay. I want to cross over to Paul, but let me hear you very briefly so that we go to Paul.
What I'd like Kenyans to do is demand more accountability. And then to break it down, for example, now let's ask, this budget, how many jobs is it going to create in the agricultural sector, for example? How many jobs is it going to create in the manufacturing industry, for example? Are we going to shift our import-export balance sheet to look at where we can be able to export more? Are the county governments going to reduce their recurrent expenditures to be able to send more money into development? How many factories are going to be developed and are created out of this budget?
Out of that budget.
How much money are we going to have in terms of management of HIV, for example? Tomorrow, statistics are being released. So when you look at 70 billion going to agriculture alone, of which half will go into the sugar industry, paying off the debts and things like that. We're seeing the Galana project having failed, but still getting more money. So what Kenyans need to understand is, if I take rent, for example, from my personal budget, to mean that I'm going to pay my foreign debts on a national aspect, does it make sense? Am I using more money?
And how much money actually goes into development? Because as long as we're not developing, as long as we're not investing, what that means, then we're stagnant. In fact, we're going backwards, because then things will only get worse. Let me cross over to Paul Wafula, who's at INM. Paul, what's the simplest format we can put the budget, the national budget, so that it's very easy to understand and very easy to follow? Because there are some of those fundamental questions. Are we funding recurrent expenditure? And I remember there's an uncle of mine who once taught me that as long as you're on recurrent expenditure, then you remain poor. Is that our current state as a country? But what's the simplest format that we can use to explain the national budget? Paul.
Thank you, Michael. I think what we should do, and we are